How you set it up?
So like, have like
Good evening.
Best
Good evening.
compliment.
I'd like to call together the regular meeting for the Rutherford Board of Education for Monday, November 18th, 2019. I'd like to start by asking everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Call the roll?
Mrs. Ahmed,
Here.
Dr. Olati, Mr. Healy,
here.
Mrs. Jones,
Present.
Mrs. Librera, Mr. Mazzone,
Here.
Dr. Racine,
Here.
Mr. Rowland,
Here.
Mr. McLean. You have a quorum.
Thank you. As per the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the rights of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda has been posted electronically on the Friday before the meeting date on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Regular meetings of the Rutherford Board of Education will be broadcast without editing during a 2-hour segment as limited by Comcast time constraints on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. on Comcast Public Access Channel and on FiOS Channel 38. A video of the meeting can also be viewed on our website at www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and Videos. Any member of the public who wishes to view a DVD of the meeting may make a request in writing to the board secretary. So starting off, I'd like to approve or put forward the minutes from the regular meeting of the Board of Education on Monday, October 28th, 2019, as well as the executive session notes from the same date. Any changes, remarks, edits? Okay, not hearing any. Yeah, so we put those into the record, please. To start off this evening, I'd like to welcome everyone coming to the meeting. It's great to see a good turnout this evening, and we start with a special presentation. These are the art students from Pierpont School, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzone. The students from Pierpont, some now are probably in Union School, were students who worked last year towards spring and through the summer, was on display in Borough Hall. As you know, we rotate the schools throughout the school year and the summer, displaying some of the artwork of our students, and the board likes to take the opportunity to recognize and thank the students for their work. So I have Mr. Ursulisi, who's here, as the supervisor of a number of departments, including the arts, and I'll have him and ask Mr. Mazzone maybe to join him to recognize the students from Pierpont School. Their work was done at Pierpont. Like I said, now some of them are attending Union, and thank them for their work that was up at the board office. Mr. Ursulisi?
Oh my. Try to make this go up a little bit here. There we go. Got 'em. All righty. Hi, good evening, everybody. Maybe? I'm the supervisor of this department, too. I got to work on this. All righty, good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Ursulisi. I'm the English supervisor. I'm also the arts supervisor. And your children, most of you are here tonight because your children are being honored for an art award. These awards actually hang above the main lobby or the main section of Borough Hall. So if you've ever been in Borough Hall to pay your taxes, above that is the lovely hallway where the artwork hangs. It hangs going into the courtroom. So on the way out of court, the last thing that folks see before they go to jail is the beautiful artwork of your children. I'm kidding. Well, maybe I'm not. I don't know. But we are going to say congratulations to the following people. If you are here, please come up, get your award. Let mom, dad, grandma, grandpa take your picture. Ava Amatucci. Oh, yes, clap. Absolutely. There you go. Congratulations. Abigail or Abby Dimitrov. Accepting for Abby.
She's at a soccer game.
She's playing soccer, so dad is here.
You want to pose for the photo?
Dylan Gagliardo. Congratulations. Nice job. Alex Hoyt. Molly Carroll. Pranada Mangukia. Veronica Masek. Congratulations. Brooke Miller. Accepting for Brooke. Sophia Moon. Congratulations. Nice job. Kaya Noguchi. Delilah Rango. Repping the Bulldog Blue, I like it. Natalie Ronan. Ava Statler. Molly Sullivan. Ariana Tomlinson. Andrew Trelongo. Congratulations, nice job. Sana Venson. Congratulations. And Johanna Zhu. Thank you, everybody. This is just a little bit of the great work that happens in our art classes. We are one of the very few districts that offers art straight on from pre-K up through 12, multiple electives at the high school, and your kids get a great exposure in the lower schools with our art teachers that enable them to end up in the high school where we have 2 AP classes. We have kids going to college specifically for art, art design, and it all starts here. So really nice job. Congratulations. Thank you. And I'm going to order a new one of these tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for the students for your work and parents for your support and for being here tonight. I mentioned that a few of the students probably are in Union School. I saw the 2 dads that came up. I think I thought our students were in graduate school by now. But I appreciate you taking the time to be here. And I know Mr. Ursulisi said some people going to jail see them, but I see them every day, you know, and I feel like I'm not. I feel like I'm in a real good place. I'm not in prison or anything, and I enjoy the work. So keep it going, keep the work going, and thank you for gracing our halls for about 3 or 4 months. I appreciate that, Mr. Rizzo.
Yeah, I'd like to echo the comments of the superintendent and Mr. Ursulisi. I work at the Pratt Institute full-time, and I see where this goes from here at our elementary K-12 school level to the Art and Design Institute, and great job. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Yeah. So Mr. Hurley reminded me that I'm sure many of you have other assignments and things you'd like to do to get ready for tomorrow. We do have a very full agenda for this evening if you'd like to stay, but if you don't, we're going to pause for about a 2-3 minute break, and then we'll resume in a few minutes. But again, congratulations. Okay, we're going to call the meeting back to order. I just like to hit the gavel. So, that said, yeah, it's a power thing. We'll move on with our meeting, and I think we will start with the report of our student representative.
Good evening, everyone. This week marks the beginning of the second marking period of this academic year, as well as the beginning of the winter sports season. Swimming started last week, and winter track begins this week. Basketball, cheerleading, and bowling will be beginning soon as well. The sports fall season ended this past week, and our athletes represented the school very well. The football team ended with a winning season, 5 wins and 4 losses. The soccer team, both boys and girls, made it to the state rounds and went very far. The track team also did very well, but the girls' volleyball team ended their season in an amazing way. After defeating Sparta in a very intense game, the team won the state sectional Group 2 championship. This was their equivalent to MetLife, and it was amazing that a large portion of the school went to the game to support them. In other news, students have been active in other aspects of the school. In 1 week, the students of the National Honor Society will be participating in a spelling bee against Beckton High School. Rutherford has won for the past 12 years in a row, and we do not plan on ending that streak this year. Furthermore, the same students volunteered this weekend at the KIPP Center to help set up and clean up a purse sale. There were a number of field trips that occurred last week. Every student enrolled in a sociology class took a tour of the Morris County Correctional Facility to learn about gang violence in New Jersey and experience what the inside of a jail looks like. The Heroes and Cool Kids attended a learning conference with students from other towns to learn how to interact with middle schoolers and teaching them about bullying, substance use, and self-care. Tomorrow we will be going to Pierpont to visit the 6th graders and apply what we learned. This Thursday, the Wind Ensemble will be going to hear the rehearsal of the Philharmonic, which also shows the arts getting involved. As we approach December, many seniors are receiving acceptances from colleges. Although most students are still waiting to hear from most of their schools, it is a big relief and a great reflection on their intelligence as well as Rutherford High School's academic strength. Sophomores and juniors will be getting the results of their pre-ACT and PSAT from October back soon, which will help them prepare for the next few years in Rutherford High School. Thank you all for listening to my report. I hope you all have a great night.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. That was very informative. I was most intrigued by the trip over to the jail.
I went on it. It was actually very cool.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've spent some time in prisons for purposes of business.
Did you look at artwork?
Just
Did you look at
clarify
artwork
that.
before
Yes.
you went? Yeah, okay.
Definitely studied the artwork. So, Ms. Boylan, thank you for a great presentation this evening. If you'd like to stay, you're welcome to.
I'll stay. I don't have anything else to do.
Good.
Okay. Enjoy the ride. Buckle up.
You know, you looked at the agenda and you saw it wasn't a big agenda tonight. There's nobody in the audience except for Mr. Conti. You figure this is a good night to stay, right? I got to start doing that. I have to start gauging the agenda in the crowd. I would like to comment on one or two things that Bridget mentioned, not about the trip to the jail, but you know, certainly I want to make note of the volleyball team. The nature of the beast. Football is always the straw that kind of stirs the drink, and when our football team won back-to-back sectional championships, and you know there was all kinds of stuff going on, well deserved. But now volleyball has done the same thing, and went on to lose in the state final. But in volleyball, it's a little different than football and basketball. The others, the sectional is really like a north type thing. It's one half of the state instead of 1/4, if that makes sense. So it's a major accomplishment. 31 wins, most ever by any team in any sport. Now understand that it's only for sports like volleyball and baseball and softball, that basketball can play that many games, but nonetheless, we have a rich history here. And the record they broke was a record they set last year. So really, it's a phenomenal accomplishment for those young ladies and their coach Anselides. And really represent us very, very well. So very pleased with that. And of course, we had the play last weekend, and so, the diversity of our students and their talents is always well shown. And I just think again, when people come into the high school or any of our schools, but the high school is usually the one that people seem to have the most misconceptions about in any district, and they walk through the halls to see the energy and what goes on in the classrooms and the quiet and the tranquility really of the place. It's remarkable. So, and that's the students and the teachers and the administration. And the last comment I want to make about the spelling bee, that was always something I got all fired up about when I was the principal. And I think we won 12 in a row, but I think we won like 19 out of 20 or something like that. It goes back to a simpler time, maybe, a different time, when we used to play Thanksgiving Day football game against Beckton. And the spelling bee was always held the day before the football game, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It still is. There used to be father-son, they used to call it, dinner at that night from the teams, from Beckton seniors and Rutherford High School seniors and their coaches, and they'd have a dinner a night before and you think about things that, Thanksgiving Day games are gone, our rivalries are gone. You'd probably get, I'm politically incorrect, you'd probably get sued for having a father-son dinner if it wasn't, a parent or significant other person, a simpler time, a different time. And the only thing that survived all these years is that spelling bee that we still have every year. With Beckton, I'm sure a lot of the students don't even know the history of it. So to me, it's a reminder of the days. Mr. Arena, if those of you remember Frank Arena, there might be a few people who do, he always used to sell corsages on Thanksgiving. He was one of our custodians. And you'd buy a corsage to bring to your wife or your mother or something like that, and all that's gone. Some people might think that's good that it's gone, right? But the spelling bee's still there. And I still have the same thing, we better win. No, I'm only kidding. Yeah, we better win.
How's the team selected? How's the team selected for this one?
National Honor Society students,
Yeah.
right?
And they take the best English students.
Yeah.
in there.
And, well, I know they probably don't do this now. Are you involved?
Yeah, I'm actually the president of the National Honor
Okay,
Society.
I used to run practices. You don't do that, do you? Do you guys run practices?
We're not doing practices, but Mystilia, who's in charge of the National Honor Society, gave us about 1,000 words
Yeah.
that we have to memorize.
Yeah, well, as principal, I used to run practices. I was sort of like that, Jerry Jones of the Cowboys. I was down there as the owner. And, we used to practice. So yeah, go out there and win one for the superintendent.
That's great. I
Ms.
myself
Jones?
was not a great speller, but I know who to go to if I need some help. So,
Ms. Jones has a comment.
yes, Mrs. Jones.
Just one thing, you mentioned the play Radium Girls. I did get to see it on Saturday. It is really something. It was intense. I didn't know the story. This is from
Yeah.
Madame Curie and the radium, and
Yeah.
they thought this was going to cure all ails. They had posted up all these different posters and trying to promote it back in 1925, 26, it was around that time. But the cast was wonderful. They did a
Yeah.
fabulous job, as everyone.
Yeah.
I've never seen a bad one. They are all wonderful. But this one, because of the intensity, I found it interesting.
And, Miss Blanchard directed it.
Right?
And it was the first play, I believe, that she's directed. She's been a
Yeah.
musical director. And, this year we need to fill that spot, and she said, I'll step up and do it. And this is not a musical. This is a dramatic play. So
And she was very
she did a great job, and, appreciate her talents, diversity of her talents as well. Okay?
Very nice. Any other board members? Any comments? Questions for Bridget?
Can I just ask you, you mentioned Mr. Arena. Is he still with us?
No.
He died?
He passed away about 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
But he was so important in Washington School. He
Oh,
was a
gosh.
Yeah.
custodian. And I remember my son, who's, 36 now, 37. He had such a heart. All of a sudden, he was going through this thing. He didn't want to go to school.
Yeah.
And I was upset, and he was upset, and we're working with this kid to go to school. It was first grade or something. He said, I'll talk to him, Mrs. Ahmed. And whatever he said to this man, all the problems were over with. He was so good to the kids.
Yeah.
He took them all under the,
Good
his
man, yeah.
wing, and
Yeah.
it's the teachers like that in our school system that
Yeah.
is the reason I've been active in school, because you have to pay back to them.
Yeah.
They really raise your
Yeah,
kids.
Yep. And Mr. Arena, Frank, was a custodian who served kind of unofficially as our athletic trainer. Now, again, think about how times have changed. I mean, he wasn't trained to be an athletic trainer,
Counselor.
but he would, tape kids up. I guess we figured he could tape a pipe, he could probably tape an ankle. Different time. But he was always a presence on the sideline at the football games, and, a real Rutherfordian. But anyway.
All the kids.
Nice.
So see, this history that you carried forward to the spelling bee is a very important thing. It's a very important thing.
Thank you, Bridget. Good luck.
Okay, so in
job.
the effort of moving us along, we'll move on to the report of the superintendent.
Okay, very short report because I spend all my time going down memory lane. A couple of things. I was going to mention volleyball. I just did that. The congratulations to Mr. Maison on being re-elected, and to Mr. Conti and to Mr. Sprayberry for being elected, and we thank Mr. Wilson for his involvement in the election. So again, it was a good turnout of voters and a good deal of support for the board. So we will be welcoming our new members on the January 4th, it is, right? Reorganization meeting on that Monday night. And of course, we'll be thanking Mr. Rowland and Mr. McLean for their service in December at the last meeting that they served at. The committee assignment sheet that we sent, I know it was a little bit confusing because we said return it Monday, but then we said return by December 9th. If you have it and you want to give it to me, I'll take it. I know Kevin was going to collect it, but in reality, he will get it, look at it, but there'll be the incoming president and me who sit and talk about the committees. So if you want to give them to me tonight, I'll hold on to them. If you want to bring them to the 9th or get them there before the 9th, that's fine as well. Okay? I want to just mention a few things about the ongoing process with the facilities plan. Mr. Kelly said to me we have to stop calling it a referendum. It's no longer a referendum, so now we're going to call it the facilities plan, right? That's what we agreed on? Okay, yeah. So very shortly, December 4th, the bond sale will take place, and we've been doing work, Mr. Kelly's been doing work primarily with both Lincoln Financial and with Lisa Grupp, our bond counsel, and also our auditing company, Bob Marone, the auditor, in terms of preparation for that. Mr. Kelly and I and a lot of our principals, some of our supervisors, Mr. Paterno, have been meeting frequently with our architects and engineers to get those final plans that are going to go out to bid, more detailed. And, the detail is things like now, redoing measurements to make sure things are accurate, looking at where certain tweaks can maybe be done in buildings to pick up a little space or have a slightly different approach. Things like, where do you envision putting computer drops? Where do you envision putting cameras? Where do you envision, what type of wall do you want here? Do you want more of a masonry? Do you want more of a drywall? Things of that nature as the plan to go out to bid becomes firm, okay? So the Lincoln project, the kindergarten center project, the Union School floor projects, and the science lab renovations here are all going to go, the first group that will be going out to bid probably sometime in between middle of January to the end of February, in that range. And then the other projects, the gyms in both buildings, the entire Pierpont job, the columns, the science rooms, all that stuff at Union and the high school facade are all going to be going out to bid a little later because those projects are going to come in more in the second wave of construction. So all that work is ongoing. And we also are, in terms of communication, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to finance. We do have a recommendation for a communication consultant to help keep everybody informed about what's going on, not just with the facilities, but with other things in the district. And I'll comment a little more about that, as maybe Mr. Kelly will when we get there. So it's been very busy. There really isn't a day that goes by that we haven't had some communication or some work or some people on site, but I feel like we're making very good progress to get things going in June. And even when we get to the school calendar tonight, that was a discussion that I had. I usually have that with the administrators and the REA for their input, but I had it with the Epic Management and PSA, the architects, to look at how we could best utilize summer. And I'll talk a little bit more about that too when we get to the calendar. Okay? So things are going along pretty well. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that at all, Joe? Okay. Or anybody have any questions or anything? Okay. Okay, so I'm done for now, and I'll jump in a few points in some of the items in the agenda.
Thank you. As for the report of the president, I will keep it very brief. As you all know, Kevin McLean's away. He's traveling. He does send his regrets. The only comment I had for this evening was I wanted to also extend congratulations to Chris Conti and James Sprayberry for their election to the board. Look forward to serving and working with both of them, having them join the board. And also kudos to Mr. Wilson. It was a very professional race, and I think everyone represented themselves very well. So that's all I have. So I would like to open the meeting up to the public. The time is 7:59. I think we can do any item on the agenda or any item. Not hearing any comments at 7:59, I will close the meeting to the public. And with that, move into the agenda for new business where action will be taken, starting with personnel. Mrs. Ahmed?
Thank you. Tonight we'll be hopefully moving motions 1 through 8. One is Ebony Clark as a confidential assistant to the business administrator. 2, Maria Valente, a long-term substitute elementary teacher at Lincoln School. 3, title instructors for supplementary after-school Title I programs for the Lincoln Annex as listed. 4, coaches, to rescind, approve the following coaching assignments. Rescind Robin Cafiero, head winter cheerleader coach, and approve Anthony Tesoriero, volunteer assistant indoor track coach. 5, substitute teachers, to approve Megan Fashing. 6, substitute teacher assistant, to approve her as a substitute teacher assistant, Megan Fashing. 7, travel reimbursement. The travel reimbursements are listed below. And number 8 is for Lauren Fuchs, a middle school math teacher at Union Middle School, effective in January. So with the board's approval, I would like to move the following, what's the word I'm looking for? The following motions 1 through 8.
Okay. Mr. Hurley, any
No.
comment on any of this?
Nope. Nope.
Okay, any board member, any comment, questions? Okay, not hearing any, will you put these motions forward, Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes, I'd like to move the following recommendations, following resignations, retirement, salary adjustments, assignments, appointments, etc., in accordance with law. Vote.
Is there a second? Mr. Rowland? Sir, would you call the roll?
Sure. Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, curriculum and instruction, Mrs. Jones?
Thank you. There are 8 resolutions under curriculum instruction for board member consideration tonight. Number 1, uniform memorandum of agreement. This is between the Rutherford Board of Education and the Rutherford Police Department for this school year. Resolution 2 is the school calendar that Mr. Hurley just spoke of. Just one observation that I made, and I think you might agree with it. Other years when school, when Labor Day was late, we opened before Labor Day, and because of the areas with the epic and construction, it makes a lot of sense just moving it till after it. Resolution 3 is out of district placements. Resolution 4 is the approval of field trips. We're now totaling 69. Resolution 5, emergency bus evacuation drills. Resolution 6 and 7 are HIB decisions where we would affirm the superintendent's decision. Resolution 8 is for home instruction for one student. I don't think that there's anything that you want to speak to unless somebody has a question over the memorandum of agreement.
Yeah,
But-
the uniform memorandum of agreement is annually agreed. Mr. Chief Russo and I meet, and we go through the 70-page document approximately. It's usually boilerplate that comes from the state. The only thing that we usually ever adjust are names of individuals, local officials and so on. Every 2 or 3 years, the state upgrades it a little bit, and they did that last year with some revisions. And I believe last year I did share with the board the entire manual, but nothing has changed in it this year other than the dates. So we have to do an annual approval. I met with Chief Rousseau last week to review it, and which we do annually, and to get his signature and mine. And once the board approves it, we let the county know that it's approved. We have to do that by the middle of December. Okay. As Ms. Jones said, the calendar the next couple of years will be tricky. Keep in mind that if we pick up time at the beginning of a summer, then you lose time, at the end of that summer, right? Because the following year, right? You lose time. So this year, I believe our last day is, I think it's the 23rd of June. I'm not 100% certain about that. So by not bringing, we looked at 3 or 4 different versions, keeping everybody out, including the faculty and staff, until after Labor Day would have made us go into that last week of June, like end around the 28th or 29th. So we really would have cut into the following summer. Not having students in the week before Labor Day and only having 2 days that the staff is in really will not cut in too much to any construction that's going on. It's easier to work around the faculty and staff than it is to work around 2,700 students. So they pick up some extra time at the end of next coming summer, right? This is the 2020 year. And then we still get out a little bit earlier than we would have if we brought everybody back. If we brought everybody back in before Labor Day, they would have lost that week, and you only pick it up a day or two in June. And the other thing, it's easier to, easier is probably the wrong word. There's going to be nothing easy about it, but it's going to be a little bit more manageable to work around students in June when there's some half days and things are winding down a little bit than it is in September or October, even though we'll have to do some working around. So that's honestly, that's going to be the biggest challenge we face. Not here in the high school. The other buildings, not so much. But the high school is going to be a challenge in terms of, especially when we start working on that facade. That's going to be a challenge. So if anybody has a spare room in your house, you wouldn't mind having an English class in or something like that, let me know. And that's it. I don't know if anybody else has any questions about any of this other items here.
Any board member have any comments or questions about that, the calendar rather, or any of the other resolutions? Yeah, I appreciate the thoughtfulness that goes into that, and I think that it's going to be a challenge over the next couple of years, but I think it's appreciated getting the most value in the time. So if there are no questions or comments, Mrs. Jones, would you put the resolutions forward, please?
I move resolutions 1 through 8 under curriculum and instruction.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Ahmed? Call the roll, please. Any questions again, anyone? None.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to finance, Dr. Racine?
Sure. We have 5 items on the agenda tonight. Number 1 is the routine approval of bills. Number 2 is a transportation agreement for us to pay to have some students transported. Number 3 is the cost to get S&P to give us a credit rating, which is needed for the bond. Number 4 is to approve a communication consultant budget not to exceed $24,000 for the year. And number 5 is to approve Laura Bishop Communications as our consultant for the remainder of the school year. Is this until June, please? Yes? Correct. Okay. Right, effective December 1st. Okay. At a cost not to exceed $14,000.
Okay, Mr. Hurley, any comments on any of this?
Only that the Laura Bishop Group, the communications consultant, we have met with Laura and Renee, and I had them come in to also meet with the administrative staff at our last administrative council meeting, which was last week, to detail the work that they will do. I think it's very important that during the next 3 years, 2.5 years, 4 years, whatever it turns out to be, that we keep the public informed of what's happening with the referendum, and we keep them informed in a timely but yet an efficient way where we're not overburdening people with information, but we're giving them the information that they should know. And the amount of project meetings and financial work and management that is going to be put on me and Mr. Kelly and the building administrators makes that part of the communication much more challenging. In addition, it's extremely important that all the good things that we talk about that go on in the district don't get pushed aside because we're focused on this facilities plan, and that the word gets out about the academic and civic and athletic and artistic and accomplishments of our students and our teachers, and they're going to have a direct handle on that too. So getting a newsletter out to the school population 4 times a year, to the general population of the entire borough maybe twice a year, so that everybody's informed, because we have to remember that everybody had a vote in the referendum. Everybody has tax dollars going towards the facilities, so we want to keep everybody informed. It's a mammoth job, and to have people that are experienced in it and professional in it and have gotten to know us now because they worked with us for the past year, I think will really go a long way to transparency, information, and dialogue. I don't know if you notice how, because I've noticed it for about 20 years and it's always irked me, how you read articles in the Record or other papers that talk about, hey, a STEM program, or a school took a trip to a jail, or this teacher did this fabulous thing, and I read them and I say, well, we've been doing that for years, right? Well, even at not such a young age, you learn things. And I learned a lot of these districts that get those pickup articles have communications people. And they know how to get the word out there. And they have the time to get it out there. So I think, there was a time that Dr. Sarsfield down memory lane tonight used to like to say, we're the best kept secret in Bergen County.
I remember that.
Well, I don't think we should want to be in the world we live in now with social media and comparative studies, and people always say, we don't want to be the best kept secret. Well, we want to be the best known school for what we do well. So I think this is going to go a long way in helping us. And for 5 years, 6 years, I've sat here, and this board, whoever comprised this board, has spoken about the need for better communications. Well, I think this does it for us. Because if we don't like the way something's going, it's always a nice thing when someone's working for you to say, hey, we want to do it a little differently. So I think it's a good thing. And I appreciate the board's faith in taking this direction in the referendum process. And hopefully in a minute or so, we'll have the faith in going forward with it, because I think it's going to help us a lot in terms of transparency and communication.
I would agree. I think that they did a very good job representing the district and the board in the referendum process. And I think, as Jack said earlier, moving into the facilities projects, I think that it is wonderful to have a very deliberate and intentional group out there solely focused on that community outreach, keeping the public informed when there are questions, when there are concerns.
Mm-hmm.
It really does, as you said, provide that level of transparency. So I think it's excellent.
And one other comment on that, and that'll be the last one.
Yes.
This has changed everything, right? So we were talking about the good things, right? Like the STEM class and the trips and the state championships and the building. But sometimes not so good things happen. And you have crisis in your building, and you have tragedies, and you have events. And, my job and the administration's job becomes to manage that, right? To control that, to be the site-based manager for that. But the word gets out very quickly. You know, you don't have a window of opportunity anymore to get a press release or to get a message out to parents, because it's getting out there from somebody within seconds, right? So again, having someone on call who can help in tough times too with managing that. And, you know, once misinformation gets out, it's hard to rein that back in, which is why it's important to get the correct information out. And, you know, quite frankly, when we had an incident last year, I was able to manage that because of the age group of the students involved, that I could get the message out before the kids got it out. But if it was an older group of kids, that message would have been out, and it would have been 75 different versions of a story. So I think having this guidance in tough times is very important too. So I just wanted to add that, you know, because everything's been too happy, I'd add something down.
Do any board members have Mrs. Ahmed?
Maybe you could correct me if this is the time, maybe it shouldn't be the time, we were like a little over the place there. But thinking about all this remodeling that's going on during the days with the children, have we ever thought of reaching out to like the different halls in town where we can maybe put the class? Like I know the Methodist Church used to have they used to call it at that time the neurologically impaired. That was years
Right.
ago. Now it's not.
We have talked about different ways, if we have to do it, to consider classes. However, the challenge is going to be, and you know, I don't want to go too deep into it now because it's too early and we haven't. The challenge is going to be that we're really not going to have a problem with classes while construction is going on in any building but here in the high school. And, you know, classes are 50 minutes in your chemistry class, and then you're 50 minutes in your English class, and then you're 50 minutes in your, so, you know, it's not a self-contained. If it was an elementary school where we could either rent or borrow a classroom, you know, that would be a more, but for the high school, that wouldn't really work because, you know, the kids are constantly moving. The good thing is you could do magic with, we can't do miracles, okay? But so we get to the miracle stage, we're in trouble. But we could do magic with scheduling, and that's why we're going to, you know, sometime in January, Mr. Morano and whoever else he wants to include, and the architects and the EPIC or manager, Bill, and whoever else is going to join us, maybe Joe or Anthony. We're going to physically walk this building, and we're going to look at, when you talk about sections of the facade, let's define what a section is. You know, how many classes, so that we know that, well, you know, if you run over the summer and you're talking 4 or 5 classes, we can manage it. If you're talking 8, we're going to have to change that section a little bit, you know? So we're going to have to, so it's kind of premature to look at that, but yes, we have had conversations about, you know, different alternatives if we needed them, okay? I also want to mention, I know, well, let's pass these. Old business, there's 1 or 2 things I forgot to mention about facilities, excuse me. I'll mention it then, okay?
New business.
When we get to that point. We'll do it.
Any other board members on any of these resolutions, comments?
Clarify number 4 with the S&P payment. Does that come out of referendum funds or out of our current?
No, it's indicated there, it comes out of the general operating budget. I think the reason is that if you don't get a rating, you don't lie. If you get a rating, you don't lie, you still have to pay, you know, it's,
Gotcha.
they don't want to tie it into, you know, proceeds, so.
Anyone else? Any other comments or questions? Okay, Dr. Racine, you put the resolutions forward.
I'd like to move numbers 1 through 5 in finance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Healy? Please call the roll.
Okay. Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Motion's carried, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to policy, Mr. Healy?
We did not have a policy committee meeting since our last board meeting.
Tonight, though, we have two resolutions, which we did discuss at the last meeting, as listed 1 and 2, and for review and approval as the first reading. The number 1 resolution tonight is a revision in paragraph heading purpose, removing the pre-kindergarten. And the second resolution is inserting a description for preschool entrance age. Mr. Hurley, I don't know if you want to add any other comments to that.
Well, it's just to be consistent with, we mentioned last meeting that we didn't spell out the October 1st date of the age requirement. So there could be confusion about, well, you know, I'm 3 now, I'm 4 now, you know, whatever the case may be. So this just spells it out to be consistent with the law regarding admission to kindergarten and the like. And the other is simply, it's not, the law does not require us to have free pre-K education, and our pre-K education is not free for general ed students. They pay a tuition, so we wanted to make sure that was clear in policy as well. So it really is a semantic thing that has policy mirror both practice and law. And the reason why it wasn't through any lack, well, it was lack, I guess, of being totally thorough, but, you know, the preschool started and, you know, we didn't necessarily go back and think about that policy and then do a review and you find it.
Mr. Healy, anything else?
No other comments. I would just like to put them forward for approval as a first reading.
Okay, I'm sorry, is there a second? Mr. Rowland? Any board member, any questions? Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, moving on to buildings and grounds, Mr. Rowland?
There has not been a meeting, Buildings and Grounds, and there are no resolutions or motions.
Excellent, thank you. Any other old business, Mr. Hurley?
Well, I just wanted to mention in relation to the facilities that from PSA, our architects firm, Rachel Tiedemann, that's how you say her name? Tiedemann, who has been with PSA and actually was with Kellen when towards the end of his own firm, Chapin, is the lead now in terms of this project, in terms of design. And Kellen Chapin, who many of you are familiar with, is working on the project with her in more, I guess, of, I guess we say advisory, consultation, with certain specific, right, responsibilities. And because of the size of this project and the size of the firm that we're now dealing with, there are individual architects who are working on each building, and that's their building working through Rachel. So it is more of a team approach, and I just wanted you to be aware of that, that it's not dealing with one architect, we're dealing most, like we had a meeting the other day where we had 3 there. And John Carton, who's a principal, has also been involved in every one of the meetings. So it really is a very good process because you're dealing with different points of views, different people picking up things that maybe somebody else may not have seen. And we're very happy with how things are progressing with that. Okay? And I just want to add that.
Any board member have any old business they wish to discuss? Okay. Not hearing any. Mr. Rowland, you have a legislative update for us?
Okay, today's legislative update is regarding the planning board town. There will be a meeting this Thursday, but further than that, looking through the Borough Code, Article 1, Section 51-1, it allows for one member of the appointed 6 citizens from the mayor's choices to be a member of the Board of Education. And that's something I thought would be interesting for one who was interested in doing that with the mayor coming in January to pursue, so that issues like the Agni project or Parker have some more input behind their closed door meetings. So something for us to consider. I don't know if it's something that happened in the history.
So how is this position different than the board's liaison to the mayor and council?
It looks like it's a voting position on the planning board, which has a special allowance, since usually nobody else can hold two positions. There's a special allowance for either a board of adjustment or a board of education to hold a spot. But it's still subject to the mayor's enactment.
Could you email me that, either a copy of that or give me the site, where to find it? I'd appreciate that. Okay.
It's 7.
Anything else, Mr. Rowland?
No, I'd encourage anyone that can to make the planning board meeting 7 p.m. at Borough Hall.
If I may, on that topic, I had a discussion with the borough administrator regarding the article that was in print, and had a discussion with a few other folks, and I have requested a meeting with the mayor-elect to talk about a number of things, including that project and some of the other projects that, the rumor mill has that may be going to be built now or in the future. I don't want to say, I don't like to talk about a private meeting publicly, so I won't, but at some point in time, I will fill you in on, when the time is right, on what the conversation has been. And the one I haven't had yet, I can't, we'll see. I'll wait to have that conversation. But certainly, it is a concern. And it's a concern that is happening, not that it helps us, but is happening in many, many communities in this area. The day that the article was in the paper about Agnew Place, there was an article in where I live in my local paper about 4 developments that are being proposed to be built where there were former drugstores or banks and things of that nature. And in talking to some of my colleagues, especially here in South Bergen, it's happened quite a bit. It's a concern because as these units are built, they always say there aren't going to be many kids, but there's always kids that come with them. And so the thing that, to, I think, Mr. Rowland's point, is maybe to get a little more proactive in terms of at least having a seat at the table or hearing, what's on the docket, so we're not blindsided. But quite frankly, when I look at space and money, even being forewarned, I'm not sure what we do about it. So I'm going to have these conversations, and we'll see where they lead. And I'll let you know, hopefully in January or so, what I'm being told and what I'm going to say. But I'll wait till those meetings happen.
Did board member have any comments?
I went to the mayor and council meeting. It was on a Tuesday, which means that we could make it. There was also talk at that particular point by one of the members about the concerns with East Rutherford's major project across from the Montrose Bridge, and on how that is going to affect just the traffic. If they take the train station, or they go to the train station in the morning coming from East Rutherford, there's no stop well, it stops both for East Rutherford. That flow of coming into town, I mean, there was a major concern about that. There are a lot of apartments that are going up, and there are 3 or 4 different buildings each holding them.
Yep.
That, the Agnew plate came up also. It was said at the meeting that the developer hasn't purchased the property. It still has to go to the planning board, and they reserve to have the final decision with the council members. So sometimes the planning board has the final one, but in this particular instance, I had hoped to go to the planning board meeting on Thursday. I might do that, and I'll keep my ears open.
Yeah, nothing's finalized yet, but again, you just look around and you see in other communities where this sort of building is going on, and there's a lot of very valid reasons why things like this get done. There's a lot of things. But, I mean, one of the things that, as a community, we all have to consider is the strain it's going to put on the schools. And the police and the fire and other areas as well. So hopefully all that's going to be discussed and as it goes forward, if it goes forward.
And my understanding too, that Fred Coriel's old golf station on the corner of Chestnut and
Mhm.
Union, that property is to be
I'm
developed.
hearing that
It's
as
not
well.
very big,
Yeah.
but
Mhm. Mhm. That's what I heard too, yeah.
so perhaps that'll come up at the planning board meeting, I don't know.
So again, I'm hoping, not to say more than I should, and, have a sit down and get some concrete information, which I'm sure I will. I mean, Mayor-elect Nunziata was very receptive to meeting, and I think this week is the the Borough Municipalities Convention, League of Municipalities Convention, so hopefully before the actual change takes place, before the holidays, we'll sit and we'll have a conversation.
Have we gotten any new students from the development on Park Ave?
It hasn't been, the Parker?
Yeah.
They're just renting now, and I don't think people even moved in yet. So, no, but we will. I mean, there's a
I thought
couple.
there were.
Well, there might be some people in, but I mean, it's just literally started renting maybe in the last month.
Did you see though, from the front, it doesn't look that big, but if you go on the
Oh, yeah.
back street and you look, it's like, wow, how did they put them in there?
How
Mm-hmm.
many apartments are there? Or, are they apartments?
52, I believe, yeah.
52.
And I think there's a majority are one bedroom, but there's a fair amount of two bedrooms.
On those lines, just to keep us aware, I think the demographic study is spot on, because since last year, October, you've got up 0.5% of
Yeah.
Right.
students.
Oh, no, it's spot on. Our demographic report is spot on. In fact, we may be a little ahead
Yeah.
of what they're predicting.
11 in our buildings,
right.
and 14 overall.
Yep, yep.
Thank you, Dr. Racine.
Hey, gotta do something.
The numbers guy.
That's why we love him. So it is 8:31. I will open the meeting to the public.
I was looking for the gym, the basketball court.
Jim's around the corner.
That member of the public will not be speaking this evening. So it is now 8:31, and we will close the meeting to the public. Mr. Early, is there a need for executive session this evening?
No, there is. I know I said in the communication there would be, but no, there is not. I will tell you that we are awaiting Mr. Schweitser's return on December 2nd as planned. Met with him last week, and as of so December 2nd is the day he's scheduled to return.
That's good.
Great. Okay, not hearing anything, I'd like to request a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved?
Second,
Again.
Mrs. Ahmed. All right.
If anybody has these forms to give me, you give them to me.
That's
If
it.
not,
Thank you.
Okay.
You can go home.